Okay, this is for those who've missed work in the last week due to various reasons. Well, of course, anyone else who wants to can listen in. I was going to very quickly just start off the party stuff with you all and just make sure you're all happy with it. So, essentially, in your booklet, you've got this thing on the political parties. And the first set of questions you've got on is the main ideological differences between Republicans and Democrats. What I'd like to do, please, is to answer those questions. I put on the page where the Bennett book starts on this. And it's just basically an introduction to the two main parties and some of the differences between them, essentially. So you got things like, how they both got very broad names, like the Democrats. Well, most Americans would say they support democracy. Most Americans would say they support being a republic. So the names the parties have chosen are very broad. So have a look to the Bennett book and answer those questions. That should be reasonably straightforward. You then got this stuff about the two-party system, and again, the Bennett book from memory has the so it's question one: whether does the Bennett book give suggests America's a two-party system? Question two is, why might this be surprising? So just to remind yourself, a party system means the number of main parties that are swirling around in the system. I often think of it being how many parties realistically are there which will form a chance of forming some kind of government. So the UK, you might say, has got a 2.5 party system because you've got Labour and the Conservatives who kind of dominate. We've also got the SNP who are kind of like a half party, aren't they? Because the SNP obviously do form governments in Scotland and they do have 50 seats or whatever it is in the House of Commons. And before that, the Liberal Democrats were the half, weren't they? They obviously formed part of the coalition and they had like a significant percent of the votes, if not always seats, in those elections of the 2000s. In the US, though, it's definitely a two-party system. So if you look at Congress, every senator bar two, Angus King of Maine and Bernie Sanders of Vermont, is either Democrat or Republican. Every member of the House of Representatives, all 435 of them, I'm pretty sure all of them are either Democrat or Republicans. This one's some smart Alex says, actually, you'll find this one isn't. And if you go even lower down the political system, look at all the governors. I think it's only the governor of Alaska who isn't either a Democrat or Republican. Every other one is. If you look at state legislatures, little state parliaments we have in every state, again, Democrats and Republicans are at every level of those as well in most states. So America has a true two-party system. And the two parties normally get well into the 90% of the votes between them. Little exception was 1992 when an independent Ross Perot got 18 point something percent, but usually the two big parties really dominate. So we need to have a think about why that might be the case, because it's quite surprising, isn't it, when you think how big and diverse America is. Why, when we've got like the Scottish National Party, haven't we, and we've got like, all those Northern Ireland ones, why isn't there like a Wisconsin Milk Independence Party, or why isn't there a California blah 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 party? So there must be a number of reasons, and for question three it actually has on here what reasons are there. So you've got the electoral system, which obviously is first past the post, but it also includes the electoral college as well for presidential elections. So see what Bennett says about that, although you've got to then think about, well, actually, is it just down to that? Because the UK has also got first past the post. Broad party ideology, so this means that the two main parties cover most of the political views across the country, and so for a third party to form, it tends to be on the extremes, and both parties tend to gobble up parties that kind of appear on their patch, so to speak. And then primaries, so this idea that because representatives face primaries, even at a congressional level, it means they have to keep in very close touch with their constituents, otherwise they might lose the primary. And so therefore that means that they're very sensitive to new ideas and stuff and quite keen to either take them on themselves or kind of crush them if needs be. It's then got a bit on about why third parties fell, which again is similar. This also explains why there's two main parties, 314 to 315 of the Bennett book. So they're fairly straightforward. So have a read of them through and make sure you fill that bit in. Okay, and then have a think about which of these factors as to why the US has a two-party system might be considered structural or rational or cultural. Just bearing in mind that potential 12 marker if it's going to exist this year. Okay, the next bit, I did this big table where I was trying to get to think about why does the US, or how does the US have a two-party system, and in what ways is it similar or different to the UK? So down the middle, you got the features, and then on the left-hand side, you write any similarities between the US and UK, and on the right-hand side, any differences in the party system between the US and UK. So I'll just do the first one, and then you should hopefully see what you need to do. So the first one is elected representatives at federal stroke national bodies. So in terms of similarities, you think, well, how many elected representatives are there from the two main parties in the UK and US, which is similar? So obviously, Labour and the Conservatives dominate the number of MPs in the House of Commons, and Democrats and Republicans dominate the number of representatives in Congress. So there's a similarity. You could also say, I suppose, that every Prime Minister in the UK since 1924 has either been Labour or Conservative, and every US President since 1854 has either been Democrat or Republican. For differences, I would say that the number of Labour and Conservative MPs as a percentage in the House of Commons is less than the number of Democrats and Republicans in Congress. Again, if you look at the 2019 results, you can find out how many Labour and Conservative MPs there are, divide that by 650 to get your percent, and then you have a quick look on the Congress website, it'll tell you what percent are either Democrat or Republican. I think it's 100% or 98% or something like that. So the difference is that the numbers, okay, it's a lot more in the US for the two parties than it is in the UK, although the similarity is, though, that they both do dominate the number of representatives. The next one is vote share of the main parties. So this is what percent the Labour and the Conservatives get in the last couple of elections, and how is that similar to the United States between Democrats and Republicans. And then differences, well, actually, it's a subtle difference, but the US is into the 90% vote share for the two main parties. In the UK, it's more like 70 to 80%. Vote share and elected representatives at a state or regional level. So this means, like, are there any similarities between the dominance of the two main parties at a state level in the US and regional level in the UK, i.e. Scottish Parliament, Welsh Assembly and stuff? There's not a huge similarity there, but what's the difference? So the difference obviously would be, well, every representative, well, most governors and most state legislatures in the US are Democrat Republican, but in the UK, as we know, the Scottish National Party are the majority in Scotland. In Northern Ireland, it's the DUP and Sinn Féin and all the other ones. And in the Wales, I think the Liberal Democrats are reasonably strong as well. Control over government, so that's referring to one or two main parties control governments usually in the country. And then reasons, so you need to think about, well, what reasons are similar between the US and the UK having a two-party system, i.e. they both use first past the post being one of them, and what are the differences between the two countries as to why they have a two-party system. So I have to have a think about that one. And then the next thing we had to do then were the main ideas of the Democrat Party. Again, if you look at page 301 of the Bennett textbook, it explains the ideas of the Democrats back in 2016. So social liberalism, that's referring to things like gay marriage and abortion and stuff. And then on the right hand side, you have to put in Labour's views about these things. So using your notes either from last year when we did it, but you might want to have a quick look at the 2019 manifesto. There used to be a link on the BBC website, which I'm sure if you type in BBC Party Manifesto 2019 or something like that, it'll probably pop up. See what they are. So just to kick you off, so for social liberalism, the Democrats are pro-abortion rights for women, they're pro-LGBTQ rights. Obama was supportive of Othell versus Hedges. He got rid of Don't Ask, Don't Tell, which prohibited gay people from joining the military. For Labour, again, they tend to support a woman's right to have an abortion. The Blair government first allowed civil partnerships between gay couples, and then they supported overwhelmingly the legislation for gay marriage. So there's a lot of agreement there between the two parties. So do the same then, look at Labour and the Democrats' main ideas about the environment, state intervention in the economy, healthcare, etc., etc. And then underneath that, you've basically got some quick questions. Again, be thinking about this with a 12 marker. What are the main similarities between both parties? They don't have to be identical, but similarities. Try and think of 3 areas of similarity. So we've already mentioned social liberalism being one. What are the 3 main differences between both parties in terms of ideas and policies? Again, thinking if the question was examine the differences. And then have a think about, is there any Democrat ideas which the UK Conservative Party would actually support? Okay, so that's what you needed to begin with. I'll do another video, probably a bit later on this morning, on this stuff about factions within the Democrat Party. So I've just uploaded one about the Republicans, but the lesson you missed on, I think it was on Tuesday, or Monday for the Monday group, is that we did about factions within the parties and the Democrat Party. So I'll go through those factions probably a little bit later on today.